Hi all and welcome to the channel. What we'll be doing today, we'll be doing a traditional mead, all made with locally sourced ingredients. The honey I sourced from a local town, and the water is from a town a little bit further away, but I'll talk about that a little bit later on. All the equipment I'll be using has been cleaned and sanitized, and there's a bucket to my left. So as you can see, I'm starting to pour my honey into my Carboy, which I'll be using as a fermenter. What you see me doing is using 3.08 kilograms of honey. What I'm doing here is I'm pouring a bit of water into the tub I used for the honey, and I'm just pouring it in just to get the excess. So rehydrating the yeast here, I'm using Lalvin 1118. This yeast is a dry yeast that you rehydrate by pouring a bit of water into a container. For this brew I mixed 3.5 grams into a 250 ml. You stir it often. So there I am adding the 250 ml of water. There's a analysis of the water that I'm using. As I said, it's a local Pembrokeshire water, sourced maybe about 13 miles away from where I live. And there I am adding the yeast. So we are now adding the water to the honey, just making must. You can see the separation between the honey and the water there, so you just give it a mix and add a bit more. So what I'm doing here is I'm just adding the start of my must to a bucket, just to give it a bit of a mix up with a spoon, as you'll see now in a moment. So I poured it into the bucket and now I'm just stirring it with my electric spoon, just a plastic spoon added to a drill. What you want to achieve here is you're just adding oxygen to the mix. The yeast needs the oxygen basically just to survive. So as you can see, while I'm pouring it back in, there's a nice foamy head on it. That's a good indication that you've got enough oxygen into your must there. Just add a little bit more water to the mix there. In this part now of the video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pitch my yeast and then take a hydrometer reading. Personally, what I like to do is I add my yeast first and then I take my hydrometer reading, just because you can see the volume there of the water going in will alter my gravity reading. So just give it a bit of a quick mix up now just before we take a reading, just to get everything swilled in there. A hydrometer reading is telling you the gravity, so the potential alcohol that you will get. The more sugar in the liquid, the higher the reading, and possibly a higher alcohol. So here I am just popping it in, and what I got there was a reading of 1.114. I'll just stick up on my board now. Just pour that back into the mist now. There's nothing wrong with that, it's all sanitized and clean. Right now what I'm doing is I'm adding a bit of Go Firm. There's different ways you can add this. You can either add it to a portion of the mist and mix it up, or some water. What I'm going to do is just measure out 5.5 grams and just pour it straight into the must and give it a bit of a mix up. So in it goes. Stick my bung back on and give it another shake. So once that's all mixed up there, just stick your airlock in. An airlock is basically like an S-shaped piece of tubing with some clean sanitized fluid in there. It just stops any bugs getting in and lets all the gases out. Just pop that in the top there. And that's it. That's your mix done. Now all you have to do is wait 2 weeks, or possibly even a month, depending on the yeast that you've used, just for it all to ferment out. You can see here 20 hours later you get a little bit of bubbling starting. You see the bubbles coming through the airlock. About 3 days later you've got a bit more activity going on there. The yeast is really starting to kick in now. A week later it's still going on, and you can see that the colour has changed slightly and that the yeast is kicking in. You can see some lees at the bottom there where the dead yeast and proteins have just sat. So here we are 2 weeks since I started the brew. What I'm doing here is just taking another reading just to get my alcohol. When filming this, I didn't realise at the time, but I wasn't quite happy with my my reading. As you can see, there's a lot of white head at the top there, so I can get an accurate thing. But a day later I did it again, and it did change my reading, but for the sake of the video we'll stick with what I got on the day. So the way you find your alcohol by volume is you take your original gravity reading minus your final gravity reading times 131.25. So for example, 1.114 take away 1.002 gives us 0.112. Times that now by 131.25 will give us 14.7, and that's our alcohol by volume percentage. So at this point now I'm just using my siphoner to rack into different containers. You do this simply just to get the liquid away from the yeast, just to get rid of the yeast that sat at the bottom there. You want to be gentle with this point just to avoid getting any more oxygen in there, as you don't really want to kick up any remaining yeast. Here I'm just grinding up some Camden tablets to pop in and some stabilizer. Camden tablets are to prevent oxidization and sterilizing. It also helps stabilize and stop the fermentation. These aren't really necessary with just a traditional mead, as the honey tends to help provide a bit of stabilization, but it's always useful just to pop it in if you're not feeling comfortable. Beware though, because at this point it will become quite pressured and it'll give you some magic shots, a bit like this. There she goes. So that's the end of this point here. You've racked your mead now. All you have to do is wait for it to just clear down, ready for bottling. Okay, so here we are, it's bottling day. And as you can see, what I've done is I've moved it from vessel to vessel. And I've also back sweetened my mead as well. Back sweetening is just adding more honey to it, just to flavour it a bit. As you can see, I'll take a reading now. So what I've done is I've altered the gravity reading slightly. If my calculations are correct, I'm pretty sure it's about a 14% mead now. So to bottle it, I'm using my auto-siphon and a bottling wand. So I've got my fluid coming down the pipe, and I'm just putting a little pressure on my bottling wand, which releases the fluid out of the bottom. Really, what you'd like to do here is use a auto-siphon and a bottling wand, again just to avoid any oxidization, so you're not bubbling it up at all. So just putting the caps on the bottle now. And that's it. That's your step-by-step from beginning to end of making a traditional mead. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe, like and share.